So hello, today I'm in Burnham on Crouch in Essex and I'm at the Church of St Mary the Virgin. I'd like to talk to you about the history of the church in the village at that time. So Burnham on Crouch is a town in Essex by the River Crouch. It's 20 miles from Chelmsford and 11 miles from South Wooden Ferrers. So it's a fairly isolated location. It's between 2 and 16 metres above sea level. This is a land that's dominated by fields and marshlands, and the River Blackwater itself wraps itself around the Dengie Peninsula to the north. And to the east we have more land and then the North Sea. The population here is around 7,500. It's a very, very ancient land where we are. It goes back to 300 million years and it was the centre of the Pangaea, or the supercontinent. Neolithic man and woman roamed these lands. And moving forward, the Bronze and Iron Age settlements were here too. The Romans took full advantage of the wide tidal rivers which run here, rich in shellfish, just as it is today. In 2021, evidence was found of a Saxon settlement dating from 400 AD. Saxon pottery and a comb were found. Now we know that St Ced in the 7th century established Essex's first Christian place of worship, not far from here, in the old Roman fort of Afona. On the map it's only 11 miles from here. A very historic event also happened here in full sight of Burnham port in 1016. Canute the Great, the Danish Viking, beached his longships opposite from Burnham at a place called Canuden. And his great heathen army, Vikings, they camped the night before on the hill at Canuden, and today St Nicholas, the church, stands there. Opposite this hill, encamped in the opposite, was Ashingdon, which is not far from there. Edmund Ironside, the Saxon king, and his army looked on. Now, from Burnham the villagers would have seen the campfires, the smell of smoke, and the endless mass of longships. And on a day of battle, Saxon and Vikings slogged it out for hours, which was most unusual at this time. Edmund was wounded, his army depleted, now withdrawing, most likely up the River Crouch itself towards Battlesbridge, or in fact he could have crossed here at Burnham. After this period, 19 years, the Danes ruled England and this area. And in fact Canute the Great would return to the site of battle. So much respect he had for the Saxons and Vikings that fought that day. Now, in 1066, Burnham on Crouch had a fairly large population of 36 households. Its lord was Alward and he had 10 freemen. By now, 1086, the Normans had changed the lord to Ralph Baynard, who was the tenant-in-chief and also lord. He had full authority. I read in the Domesday Book that there were 900 sheep here, a mill, and 10 plough teams. Burnham was known as Burnham, meaning burn, a stream, and ham, a homestead. And we know that in 1115 there was a church right here. Records show that St Mary the Virgin, as it is today, was given to the priory of Little Dunmow, an Augustinian priory, also dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Now today, the church stands 1 mile north of the town, and if you go down that direction you have the estuary itself. This church is basically a 14th century church. It's built in ragstone and flint with limestone dressings. And we'll start with the west tower, which is just to the left of us. Now the west tower is 12 foot square. It's built in 3 stages and it's got an embattled parapet on the top. And you can see the stage there. And you can see a further stage there. And the west window was from 1330. The lower stage here is built from septaria with some Roman brick and flint. Now septaria, it comes from the marshes here. Let's have a look at that window from 1330. This is the original west doorway there, and you can still see carvings of the heads. Now in 1702 the tower was severely damaged by a storm and was soon restored, but it was reduced in height by 20 feet. In 1779 the original spire was blown down in the storm, so it's seen a lot of action, and you can see here how they construct it. Random rubble. Now looking straight on ahead of us, we have the south aisle. This is 15th century. It's got 7 windows in the south side, so it's quite light inside. It's described as having fine battlements. This church was restored in the Victorian period, so that's why it's quite a clean looking finish to it. A lot of flint. Now this porch, very fine looking porch indeed, from 1523. This was built in the time of Sir Robert Ratcliffe, who was Lord of the Manor here. It's described as having fine gargoyles, 2 of them, which guard the entrance there. On the front, originally, there would have been 4 family crests. There's one there, there's another one there, there's another one there, and there's a crest there. So on this side, where it's got the triangle, this would have been the Fitzwalter family crest. In the middle, which has perished, it would be Robert Radcliffe, and to the east, which you can still see quite good detail, it's an 8-pointed estale, and this was inherited by the Ratcliffes from the Fitzwalter family. And above the entrance there also was a coat of arms from Little Dunmow Priory, and above in Latin it would have said Harvey Vicar caused this porch to be built. Now originally these doors, there's 3 sets of doors here, these were fitted in 2003. Before that you had these doors, are the original oak doors, and these were originally fitted outside. Now if you look at these doors, you see you've got overlapping oak planks with ironwork, and this is how they would lock it from the inside. If you turn the door around, you can see the construction. It's called linen fold panelling, and they were moved in the 1930s to protect them from the elements. And you can still see. These doors date from 1523. Now, this set of doors here were from the 1970s, so we're going to go inside. Now we're in the south aisle, and this is 12 feet wide. Now I'd like to talk about this font here, which has got great age. This is late 12th century font. It's got a square bowl on the top there, and it's got worked round heads and side shafts. So it's obviously heavily worn. You can understand being that age. Now Purbeck marble comes from Dorset in England. The quarry beds are only 1.2 metres thick, and virtually all the cathedrals use Purbeck marble, including Westminster and Canterbury. Only master marblers can work it. It's only quarried now for special occasions. And you can actually see incumbents of Burnham and Curate. You can see some of the dates from the early 14th century. Now this ceiling here is unusual in that it's unbroken, continuous. It's 93 feet long, and it dates from 1774. Basically what happened here was there was a massive fire, and all the ceiling and woodwork perished, and only the walls were left. If you look, you can see these columns, or these piers are sort of leaning over, which is quite standard for old buildings. It's possible that they were from the fire itself, the way it's leaning. This vestry here in front, which is flanked by the organ either side, it's built in 2008. It's named after the shrine of Our Lady of Wallisham. The original staircase goes up to the bell tower inside there. So in this church there are 6 bells. There's a John Walgrave from 1415, which is an incredibly early bell. There's there's only 7 in Essex. 1415 is the year of the Battle of Ashingdon, and also Pope Gregory officially opened the Council of Constance, and then he abdicated. And the last time a pope abdicated or resigned was Pope Benedict the 16th in 2013. Now the bells, we also have an Anthony Bartlett from 1673. Now Anthony took over the bell foundry from the Bartlett foundry in Whitechapel, London, and he took this over as a young man. Many of the bells from the family, from the generations, they had perished in the Great Fire of London in 1666, but many more have survived. Anthony passed away in 1676, so it's only 3 years after the bell here was cast and hung. His son James Bartlett went on to cast many bells for Christopher Wren's church in London. We've also got bells from the Thomas Mears and Son, 1807, another very famous Whitechapel foundry family. We've got a Leicester and Pack, 1767, which took over from the Bartlett family. And we've got a Warner bell, 1911. Now the Warner foundries were across London at the time. They cast Big Ben. So the nave that we're standing in now is 93 feet by 16.5 feet. And you can see that it merges with the chancel at the front, which is quite unusual. This north arcade, which is the columns here, there's 9 bays. And the first 6 in this direction are from the 14th century. And the 3 at this end are 15th or 16th. Now the north aisle, which is over here, is 12 feet wide. It's late 15th century. Just look at some of these windows while we're here. You know, I do like a window. A lot of these windows are dedicated to families or memorials. So paid for by the families. Great Victorian quality. Another one there. Sport for choice in here. Lovely Victorian windows. Now, over here on the wall there's a brass. I can find the paperwork. Yeah, it shows Virgin and Child, this tiny brass here. This was unearthed from the church green in 1977. It was hurriedly buried in 1530 when Oliver Cromwell's soldiers were scouring churches and removing and destroying such items. Incredible. Now over here, there's a memorial to various Scott family members. Now this is dedicated to the Battle of Trafalgar 1805. A Mr. or Reverend Dr. Alexander John Scott, who was a curate at Burnham for many years from 1808. He was also a vicar at nearby Southminster. The Reverend Scott also served as Horatio Lord Nelson's personal chaplain during the Battle of Trafalgar. Scott was also Nelson's personal secretary and close friend. And when Lord Nelson died, he died in the arms of Reverend Scott. Also, which was great interest to me, was that he was possibly related to Scott of the Antarctic. Found it absolutely fascinating. If you look on the floor, we've got 18th century brick tiles, which are original. There are some Tudor ones mixed here. Now, when the fire happened here in 1774, correct myself there, this was a piece of lead that was taken off the roof and cast in some way to remember it. And it basically says in the year 1774, this church, I like the way they spelt church, and it goes on to say was burnt down with all items, ornaments, the walls only left. You can see the craftsmanship there, it's great stuff. We have another window. Have a little look. There's a memorial on the wall there for World War One. There's a lot of people that came from this area. This pulpit, we'll go back. This stone pulpit, stone and marble, great quality. Built in 1877, a memorial to William Auger, church warden. His family were oyster traders, so they must have had a fair few bob to pay for this. You can see down there. Great craftsmanship. And if I was to take a step up here, you can get a view of a fair-sized congregation would be here. This beautiful chandelier here. This was 17th century, it's the time of the Mayflower. And it was converted from candles to gas to electricity over the centuries. Incredible. I like the way they cut the pews to fit the pillars. Let me show you a few. We will make that fit somehow. You can see how they've done it over the centuries or decades. Great stuff. Right, over here we have the original north door for the priest. This dates from 14th century, completely original. See the iron strap holding it together, giving it some strength. And if you look here, where they had a complete fire in here, you can see all over, you can see where the stonework's burnt. Let's see. Yeah. See where it's discoloured. So please pay a visit. So Burnham on Crouch today is famous for its regatta. It's there's a lot to do with sailing and various events that are held here. and it's also known as a very calm place to come and visit. So it's very popular in the summer months. So we'll have a quick walk around the church itself. You can see all the windows there. There's one of the old south doors that's not used, I don't believe. I think these roses were in connection with one of the priests here. And again, you can see how the weather attacks it if it's exposed like this. Guess it's sandstone. And also headstones. Once the frost peels away or gets beneath a layer of sandstone, it will just flake off. So this is 1768. And if you look here, you can see now, I've just noticed on this south facing wall, oh, this is really exciting. This is a mastile. You can see there's a smaller one there and a larger one here, and you can see the increments there for the different times. Oh, there's a third one actually, the third one. So they'd put a wooden pin and that would cast a shadow. Wow, that's quite impressive. I like that. If you visit church, it's always fun to try and find one of these mastiles. So you can see in the distance there, population of all the buildings of this area going up. You see how some of the tombs fall into disrepair a bit. So you can see the patternation of the church there on the east wall, which is checkerboard flint pattern, which is quite popular in the time of the 100 Years' War. I think from memory a lot of the flints here came from France. They may have been used as ship's ballast, so where the ships of Henry V and all the other kings of that time would fight, take over horses and weapons, etc., they may come back empty and they could bring back booty from France and flint. Now we're on to the north side. You can see these buttresses here, which are 18th century brick. You can also see one of the original timbers there that's been cut off and left exposed. I mean, if that's oak, which it probably is, it can last a good 500 years, no problem. Incredible. Now this porch is an early Tudor porch. It's obviously brick, and the design is a crow-stepped gable. Wow, the window's been blocked up. Now inside in the floor, this is unused, I think it's used for storage now. There are several 13th century coffin lids. You can see how they've bricked it up. They've got the drip tray there. You can see also how the 18th century builders have just put the buttress more or less up against there. It's not been touched since. Incredible. Some more of these fading heads. It's obviously a king. And a queen. Fantastic. It's the north side of the West Tower. You can see up there. We'll go around the other side because just spotted that as well. Not sure if that's a mason's mark or possibly a level stone, some sort of mark for the masons to work from. I'm not sure. But you can see the buttress there running up. So the other side of that, you'll have the staircase that goes up to the tower. And if you look here, you can see the windows to let a bit of light through. Another one at the top there. Right, so I've enjoyed that, so I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you very much.